You don't hate your life. You just outgrew the version of you living it. And that's the part nobody tells you. We spend so much time thinking something's wrong with our circumstances, our job, our city, our relationships. But if we're honest, when you strip all that away, the discomfort isn't coming from outside. It's coming from the gap, the space between who you are right now and who you know you're supposed to become. And that gap, it's not punishment, it's proof. Think about this for a second. When you see someone living with discipline, focus, clarity, someone who wakes up early, executes, follows through, you don't feel inspired, you feel irritated. Why? Because they remind you of the version of yourself you abandoned, not the version you never were, the version you walked away from. That's where the resentment lives, not in jealousy, in recognition. And recognition hurts more than criticism. Here's what happened. At some point, you made peace with less. Not dramatically, not consciously, but quietly. You started negotiating with your own standards. One skipped workout became 2. One postponed goal became 30. One night of distraction became months of drifting. And drift is dangerous because it never feels like destruction. It feels like just this once. Just this once I'll sleep in. Just this once I'll scroll. Just this once I'll start tomorrow. But just this once repeated becomes your identity. And that identity repeated becomes your entire reality. You didn't wake up one day and decide to become this version of yourself. You became it through 1,000 small surrenders. And now you're sitting here wondering why life feels so heavy when you're the one who stopped lifting. The weight you're carrying isn't your life. It's your potential. Potential you haven't acted on. Potential you keep pushing the next month, next year, that next version of you that never seems to arrive. Here's the truth most people won't say out loud. You're not stuck because life is hard. You're stuck because you've been protecting the wrong version of yourself. The comfortable version, the one who makes excuses, the one who blames timing, the one who says I'll get serious eventually. You've been feeding him for years. You've been letting him decide. And every time he wins, the disciplined version gets quieter. But here's what you need to understand. The disciplined version isn't gone. He's just waiting for you to stop negotiating, waiting for you to take authority back. This is where most people get it wrong. They try to destroy the old version. They try to burn their life down and start over. But that never works, because destruction without replacement just leaves a hole, and holes filled with the same old patterns. You don't need to destroy who you've been. You need to stop obeying him. He can exist. He can have thoughts, feelings, resistance. But he doesn't get to vote anymore. When the alarm goes off and he says 5 more minutes, you don't argue, you move. When the workout feels hard and he says skip today, you don't negotiate. You go. When the work gets uncomfortable and he says scroll instead, you don't discuss, you execute. That's not aggression, that's authority. And authority is the only thing that closes the gap. Right now, your emotions have been in charge. Your comfort has been voting. Your impulses have been leading. And you've been following like none of this matters. But it does matter. It matters because every time you let the weaker version lead, you reinforce him. Every time you choose distraction over direction, you build evidence for the person you don't want to become. And your brain believes evidence. If you keep proving to yourself that you're inconsistent, your brain will make you consistent at being inconsistent. If you keep proving that you quit when things get hard, your brain will make quitting your default. You become what you practice, not what you intend, what you practice. So let me ask you something uncomfortable. What have you been practicing lately? Not what have you been planning, not what have you been hoping, what have you been practicing? Because if someone watched your last 30 days without hearing your goals, would they guess you're building something or just passing time? Would they see someone moving toward their potential or someone slowly drifting away from it? Patterns don't lie. Intentions do. Here's the part that hurts. You still have standards. If you truly didn't care, you wouldn't feel this tension. You wouldn't be here listening to this. You wouldn't feel that knot in your chest when you think about where you are versus where you could be. That tension is not weakness. It's proof that your higher standard is still alive, buried under distractions, buried under excuses, but alive. And that means you're not broken. You're misaligned, and misalignment can be fixed. Broken requires rebuilding. You don't need rebuilding. You need realignment. You need to stop practicing the old version and start rehearsing the next one. Every single day you get to choose which version rehearses. The one who scrolls for 2 hours or the one who gets to work. The one who reacts emotionally or the one who pauses and responds. The one who carries yesterday's stress into today or the one who starts fresh. This is your power, not motivation, not talent. not luck. It's choice, repeated consistently. Most people wait for motivation to arrive before they move. But motivation is emotional and emotion is unstable. Some days you'll feel fired up. Some days you'll feel empty. If your action depends on how you feel, your progress will always be inconsistent. Discipline isn't about feeling ready. It's about deciding that feeling doesn't get a vote anymore. Think about who you want to become, not 5 years from now, today. What does that version do? How does he wake up? How does he work? How does he respond when things get hard? How does he treat his own promises? Now, here's the uncomfortable question. Are you practicing that version right now? Or are you still practicing the old one, hoping something will magically change? Because hope without rehearsal is just fantasy. And fantasy feels good in the moment, but leaves you empty afterward. You don't need more fantasy. You need more friction. Deliberate friction. Small, daily resistance against comfort. A cold shower when you want warm. An early alarm when you want sleep. The workout when you want rest. Deep work when you want distraction. Not to punish yourself, but to retrain yourself. Comfort trained you into this version. Only controlled discomfort can train you out. The first week won't feel powerful. It will feel awkward, uncomfortable, even boring. That's normal, because you're shifting who leads. The old voice will protest. He'll say this is too much. You deserve a break. You've done enough. That's the version you've been protecting. And now he's losing control. Let him protest. Let him complain. Let him make excuses. But don't let him decide anymore. Here's the secret nobody tells you. You don't become disciplined by loving discipline. You become disciplined by hating the alternative more. By reaching a point where staying the same becomes more painful than changing. Where the discomfort of regret finally outweighs the discomfort of effort. Most people never reach that point. They stay comfortable enough to keep drifting, but uncomfortable enough to never feel peace. They live in the middle, never fully committed, never fully free, always knowing they could be more, but never becoming it. That middle ground is where potential goes to die, not dramatically, but quietly, in postponed goals and broken promises and days that blur together until years have passed and you race still waiting to start. You don't have to stay there. You never did. The door has always been open. You just kept walking past it because walking through requires leaving something behind. Comfort, excuses, the safety of low expectations. Low expectations feel safe because they mean low pressure. If you don't try seriously, you never have to fail seriously. You can always say I could have done more if I really tried, but that's not protection. That's a prison. And you've been the warden. What would happen if you actually committed? Not have committed, not I'll try, not I'll see how it goes. What if you actually decided, closed the door, and removed the escape route? What would 6 months of that look like? Not years, 6 months. If you stopped negotiating with yourself, if you followed through daily, if you removed the distractions you know are killing your focus, if you actually respected your own potential. Most people underestimate what 6 months of discipline can do, but they overestimate what one burst of motivation can fix. Motivation fades, standards stay, and standards are just decisions you refuse to revise. Right now, in this moment, there are two versions of you, the one who's been drifting and the one who's ready to stop. The old version wants to think about this, maybe bookmark it, maybe save it for later. The next version knows that later is a lie. Later never comes. There is only now. The moment you choose the next version, everything shifts, not instantly, but permanently. Because decisions have momentum. One honest decision leads to one honest action. One honest action leads to another. And repetition builds identity. You don't become the person you want to be in one dramatic moment. You become them in the small moments nobody sees. The early mornings, the hard workouts, the work when no one's watching, the promises kept to yourself. That's where self-respect comes from. Not from speeches, not from motivation, not from videos. From evidence. Evidence that you follow through. Evidence that you mean what you say, even when you're the only one listening. And when you have that evidence, you don't need motivation anymore. You don't need an external fire. You become the fire, not because you're special, but because you proved it to yourself. And proof is permanent. So here's where we are. You don't hate your life. You just outgrew the version of you living it. And that's not a problem. That's progress. Growth always feels uncomfortable because it requires leaving behind who you've been. The question isn't whether you can become the next version. You can. You've always been capable. The question is whether you're willing to let the old one go. Not destroy him, just stop protecting him. Stop letting him decide. Stop feeding him with excuses and avoidance and comfort. The next version of you is already in there. Quiet, patient, waiting. Waiting for you to stop negotiating. Waiting for you to take authority back. Waiting for you to prove that you're serious. Not tomorrow, not next Monday, not next month, now. Because now is the only time that exists. Yesterday is memory. Tomorrow is imagination. Now is where change happens. One decision, one action, one promise kept. That's it. That's how you close the gap. That is how you stop hating the version you've been and start becoming who you were supposed to be. You don't need a new life. You need new standards enforced daily, not occasionally, not when you're motivated, daily. Because standards without enforcement are just wishes. Enforced standards become your identity, and identity removes the war. When you know who you are, decisions get easier. Discipline becomes automatic. Your energy stabilizes because there's no internal conflict anymore. The leader has been chosen. So choose, right now, not with words, but with action. Do one thing differently today, one thing the next version of you would do. That's how it starts. That's always how it starts. One honest action, then another, until one day you look back and realize you're not the same person anymore. And for the first time in a long time, you don't hate who you see, you respect him. And that changes everything. Thanks for watching. If this helped, subscribe for more.